India just designed one of the most advanced chips on earth, the 2 nanometer chip. But here is the uncomfortable truth. Engineers, laboratories, talent, everything is Indian except the ownership. Qualcomm, San Diego, California owns it with all the profits, the IP, the patent, the ecosystem sitting 13,000 kilometers away. The factory is yours and you earn a profit and nothing more. The owner of the design takes the product to sell it at a much higher price in the market because we sweat the genius and they cash the glory. So exactly whose future are we building and what should we be aspiring for? A local competition or with the whole advanced world? If you realize this deep and silent crisis, then how did we really come to this situation? And is there any way out from this crisis? Let's begin. To answer the basic questions, let's start with something very basic, something which you all know and something which you all use every day. Let's start with the case of UPI, Unified Payments Interface. 100% Indian innovation, the impact is so much that got the whole world watching us. Many nations are starting and adapting to UPI. It has beaten fintech giant Visa by volumes. 500 million transactions every single day. Click above for a detailed breakdown on UPI. So let me ask you, which UPI app do you use? PhonePe or GPay? Two of the biggest UPI apps in India, PhonePe and GPay. GPay is owned by Google by the name itself. But what about the biggest UPI app, PhonePe? Indian technology and innovation built by Indian engineers, founded by Indian visionaries and used by 320 million Indians every single day. Now ask, who owns PhonePe, India's biggest UPI app? Walmart, US. Everything is Indian, start to end, but American ownership owns up to 90% of the total UPI landscape in India. We build the infrastructure and they run the businesses, and the value slips out of our hand every single time. Because PhonePe alone is valued at $12 billion or 1 lakh crore rupees. If the example of UPI looks cherry-picking, then let's move on to another critical sector. Let's look at iPhone. At present, around 20% of the iPhones produced are made in India. For the sake of discussion, let's take one iPhone made in India, sold in India to track its cash flow. Imagine that phone cost rupees 1 lakh. So how much of that cash actually flows inside India? Rupees 58,000 goes to Apple US for the IP, the design, the brand, the ecosystem. Taiwan's TSMC gets rupees 12,000 for the chips. Korea gets rupees 13,000 for the display. Japan, 7,000 for the camera. All of them own the technologies, the IPO, the brands for the entire iPhone production and not just Indian. While for made in India iPhones, India gets rupees 8,000 to 10,000 in total. This figure, when compared to the global production, falls down to just 1,500. Are we happy to be a technology tenant nation and happily allowing someone else to remain the tech landlord? It is not bad to run a factory in outsourcing. You will get salaries, the jobs, social recognition, and some decent profits. Whereas the real owners get the patents, the royalties, and control brute power. But how did this subservient second-order mindset develop among us? The story goes back 40 years ago on how computers and IT entered our country. Mid of 1980s, India discovers its so-called competitive advantage. Cheap labor, English-speaking engineers, good enough education to become the back office of the world. The sophisticated IT industry rolls out. Fast forward 40 years, what did we achieve? Jobs in plenty, no doubt. But number one, we help write the codes for the big tech. Number two, we buy their products to run our own systems. Number three, we run the back office of the world. Customer support, maintenance, bug fixes, and long night shifts to solve the problems of the West. The result, 40 years, not one global platform, not one powerful design, no such ownership, No tech building by the tech-savvy world's fourth largest economy. Just fat salaries and an illusion of success. But do you know what's the cruel irony? India wasn't always the worker. We were the largest economy in the world for centuries. We had mastered the making of steel, mathematics, medicine, astronomy. Then how did we get reduced to just workers? Because it is not a bug. It has been a well-thought design. We are still running the colonial operating system. Okay, so almost 200 years ago, a British officer Macaulay was designated to reform the indigenous education system in India for colonial rule. It was 1835, and his goal was to create a class of Indians who were Indians in blood and color, but British in taste and opinion. But how? Simply by destroying the original and indigenous education system that evolved over thousands of years on this land. Clerks, accountants, railway workers, civil servants, Indians who could work for the empire and not smart enough to question it. 1947 independence, the British left, but what stayed back? 1. The same colonial education system, designed to create workers and not entrepreneurs. 2. The colonial bureaucracy, designed to control the mass, same red tapes, corruption, and severe policy paralysis. 3. The crippled mindset, get a good job, work for a company, stable salary, and retire with pension. This resulted in a total neglect of original R&D spending. India spends 0.64% of GDP. Meanwhile, China 2.4, US 3.5, Israel nearly 6. Because the system was designed for workers, not thinkers or inventors.
उसने ऐलान किया था, मैं ऐसे भारतीय बनाऊंगा, वो दिखने में तो भारतीय होंगे, लेकिन मन से अंग्रेज होंगे.
Well, that's too much of heavy stuff. Not everything is in darkness. Today, India feels more confident. The startup ecosystem is growing fast. The technologies are gaining footprint. The manufacturing index is going strong. Let's just take two cases in short that refuse to play by the convention. First, Zoho Corporation rejected every dollar of VC funding, zero outside investment, built from a small village in rural India. Now, $12 billion valuation, 100 million users worldwide, competing directly with Google and Microsoft, and winning customers. 100% Indian-owned, 100% of the value stays here. Second, the new sensation, Sarvam AI. This is not a copy, not a shortcut, not renting on foreign platforms. It is core AI system built from scratch in India, optimized for Indian scale languages and realities. No outside borrowing, real engineering, real ownership. Proof that India can build world-class frontier tech, which got the whole world watching. Build new systems, don't seek their validation, own the platform, own the IP, own the future. Discard the colonial education system. Just like Japan, we need to resurrect our own knowledge systems, not for nostalgia, but for competitive advantage. Normalize risk-taking and put Indian capital into Indian innovation. We have 100+ billionaires. We don't need Silicon Valley VCs because DeepSeek was funded by a Chinese quant fund. Keep the bureaucracy outside. A system designed for mass control cannot be brought in to kill innovation and talent through their red tapes, corruption, and excess of compliance. Now imagine 100 Sarvams come up. That wouldn't be just a startup story. That would be a civilizational shift. 200 years ago, we grew the cotton. Britain owned the textile mills. Today, we write codes, design chips. America owns the platforms. Same pattern, different century. How long before we say enough? The DNA is here, the decision is pending. That choice starts with you.